I'm Jeff Davis, Chair of the Board of Directors of Housing Development Partners, or HDP, and HDP Mason. It is now 9:05 on December 15th, and I am calling to order the special meeting of the board for both HDP and HDP Mason. The process we are using for today's meeting is authorized by Government Code Section 54953E, which was added by Assembly Bill 361. This allows us to use the teleconferencing and provides the public with an opportunity to address the board through a call-in or internet-based option during a proclaimed state of emergency. The San Diego City Council on November 15th, 2022, and again this week on December 13th, declared that a state of emergency continues to directly impact the ability of members to meet safely in person. The council also declared that this applies to all boards, commissions, and committees of the City of San Diego. This meeting is occurring by video conference with all board members, staff, and general counsel participating by video. Now for the record, I will ask each board member to indicate your presence as I say your name. Gary Gramling.
Yes, present.
Stephanie Benvenuto.
Here.
Mitch Mitchell.
Here.
And Justine Nielsen. All right, so Justine is not with us today. No members of the public are in attendance. However, members of the public may watch today's meeting, which is being streamed live online. The agendas for today's HDP and HDP Mason board meeting included a link to the webpage for Housing Development Partners on the San Diego Housing Commission's website. The public can access the live streaming for today's meeting on that page or on the board meetings page on HDP's website. The public has been provided with an alternative opportunity to provide comments to the board through an online comment form and a phone number. A link to the online comment form was included on the agenda for today's meeting, which was posted on Housing Development Partners website, www.hdpartners.org on December 8th, 2022. The agenda and the public comment form explained that written comments about items on the agenda will be read into the record if they were submitted by 4 o'clock yesterday, December 14th. Written non-agenda public comments submitted by 8 o'clock this morning will be read into the record. In addition, members of the public who wish to listen to today's meeting by phone and speak on an item may call the phone number that is included on the agenda. That phone number is 669-900-6833. When prompted, callers should enter the meeting ID number provided on the agenda, which is 967-4640-6376. A participant ID is not required, just press pound. Members of the public will remain muted until they are called upon to speak. When the comment period for non-agenda public comment or an agenda item is introduced, those who wish to speak should press *9 on their phone to raise their hand. Staff will inform callers when it is their turn to speak. When that occurs, the caller will need to press *6 to unmute themselves. If a caller begins to comment on an item that is different from the item currently being considered, they will be muted and asked to raise their hand at the appropriate time. Members of the public will have 3 minutes each to provide their comments. However, if a large number of callers wish to speak on a single agenda item, comments will be limited to 1 minute each. Members of the public may also watch video of today's meeting through the live video streaming available through the HDP web page on the Housing Commission's website at www.sdhc.org, which is under the About Us menu tab. The video of today's meeting is also accessible on the HDP Board Meetings page on HDP's website. Just click on the word video. We will now move on to non-agenda public comments for both the HDP and HDP Mason boards. As I mentioned, the phone number for today's meeting is 669-900-6833. Those who wish to provide non-agenda public comments should press *9 to raise their hands. This is the time when members of the public may provide comments about topics that are not on today's agenda, but involve a subject within the area of responsibility for the HDP or HDP Mason board. The board cannot take action on non-agenda public comments. We did not receive any written non-agenda public comments for either the HDP or HDP Mason board. I will now ask our Vice President of Communications, Scott Marshall, if anyone has raised their hand to provide non-agenda public comments.
We do not have any raised hands for comments this morning. Thanks.
Thank you. So that will conclude the non-agenda public comments. Do any board members have any comments this morning? Seeing nobody raising their hands, we'll move on to a few updates that I would like to provide to the board. First, relating to the HDP office lease at 701 B Street. That lease will end on March 31st, 2023. A project team is coordinating the upcoming move out from those offices. This includes cleaning personal and professional belongings out of the space, and we will also be relocating furniture, fixtures, and equipment that belong to HDP. In addition, the move out process will include forwarding mail to the San Diego Housing Commission's offices. HDP's information technology infrastructure and maintenance will also transfer to the Housing Commission. The HDP office space is no longer necessary at this point because the Housing Commission has implemented a 2-year pilot program to allow some staff to work remotely. Staff members continue to provide quality service to customers by phone, email, mail, virtually, and through in-person appointments as needed. At our June meeting, the board approved an agreement for a security assessment of 10 HDP properties. HDP executed a 1-year contract with Delta V, which started August 1st, 2022. Delta V has performed site inspections and interviews at Quality Inn, West Park, the Mason Hotel, and Hotel Churchill. Staff expect to receive the consultant's draft report for review next week. The next set of property inspections will occur in early 2023. Staff meets every 2 weeks with the consultant to discuss progress and address any questions. Final reports for all properties identified to undergo a security assessment are expected by June 2023 per the terms of the contract. I have a few project development updates for you. The first one, Mariners Village. The application for IRS Tax Form 8609 for the Mariners Village property has been submitted to the California Tax Credit Allocation Committee. This form is required for low-income housing tax credits for the rehabilitation project as part of the regulatory period. The form certifies from the state that the buildings have been completed and placed in service and that the tax credits can be issued. This typically leads to the release of any remaining equity installments to the developer, including in most cases, the payment of the final developer fee. Mariners Village consists of 170 affordable rental apartments for families with low income in the Skyline Paradise Hills area. The initial application for the tax form was submitted in September, and this month staff resubmitted responses to comments on the application, and this is something that's typical for the process. Obtaining approval for the application is expected to take 14 to 18 months based on our experience with similar efforts for New Palace and West Park. Speaking of West Park, the Tax Credit Allocation Committee is reviewing the final documents for the Tax Form 8609. In about a month, they will complete their review and issue the form, and the project will be formally closed out. You'll recall that West Park in Bankers Hill provides 46 affordable rental housing units with supportive services for people who experienced homelessness. Quality Inn is next door to West Park. The installation of solar panels at the property is pending final utility provider tie-in, which is expected very soon. Quality Inn provides 91 affordable rental housing units with supportive services for people who experienced homelessness. We have met all of the occupancy and income benchmarks that lenders for this project, Citibank and Freddie Mac, required, and we anticipate receiving the final reserve funding distribution by the end of this year. Casa Colina, the design team is nearing the completion of the design development stage. Schematic plans have gone through a preliminary review with the city, and a project cost estimate is in the process at this time for the rehabilitation with the report due in January. Casa Colina is a 75-unit affordable housing property in City Heights for seniors and people with disabilities. In addition, we are evaluating the potential to increase the housing density at Casa Colina. Due to the property reaching its year 15 tax credit period, Casa Colina makes sense to be the first property to pilot our efforts to increase density at our properties. This is part of the Housing Commission's broader preliminary efforts to explore increasing density throughout its real estate portfolio to produce additional affordable housing. After we receive feedback from a land use consultant, staff will work with the design team to create preliminary studies and obtain cost estimates for the construction options that are considered feasible. So that concludes my update for this morning. Do any board members have any questions? Seeing none.
I'm interested in that Casa Colina project to try to increase density. So I'll look forward to the future report.
Excellent. Thank you. All right, let's move on to the minutes. The next on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from June 24th, 2022 HDP Board Meeting and the December 10th, 2021 HDP Mason Board Meeting. Members of the public who wish to comment on the minutes for either of these meetings should press *9 to raise their hands. No written public comments were submitted regarding the minutes for either of these meetings. Has anyone raised their hand to comment on the minutes, Scott?
No, we don't have any hands raised. Thanks.
All right, this concludes the public comment period for the meeting for the minutes. Do any board members wish to make any changes to the minutes?
I'm prepared to move approval.
All right, we have a motion by board member Gramling. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second from board member Benvenuto to approve the minutes from the June 24th, 2022 HDP board meeting. For the record, I will ask each board member to say your vote on the motion when I state your name. Gary Gramling.
Aye.
Stephanie Benvenuto.
Aye.
Mitch Mitchell.
Aye.
And Justine Nielsen. Just one last time, are you here? No. All right. Board members Gramling, Benvenuto, and Mitchell have voted in favor of the motion. I also vote in favor of the motion, so that carries by a vote of 4-0. We will now adjourn as the HDP board and convene as the HDP Mason board to consider the December 10th, 2021 minutes. Board members Mitchell, Nielsen, and I were not on the HDP Mason board on December 10, 2021, so we will abstain from voting on those minutes. Board members Benvenuto and Gramling, would one of you like to make a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
And second.
All right, so we have a motion by Stephanie Benvenuto, a second by Gary Gramling to approve from the December 10, 2021 HDP board meeting. For the record, I will ask board members Benvenuto and Gramling to say your vote on the motion when I state your name. Gary Gramling.
Aye.
Stephanie Benvenuto.
Aye.
All right. So the HDP Mason board minutes are approved by a vote of 2-0, with board members Mitchell and I abstaining. We will now adjourn as the HDP Mason board and reconvene as the HDP board to proceed with the remaining items on the agenda. PowerPoint presentations were emailed to the board members yesterday and are posted on HDP's website. This morning, I am proposing that item 100, the 2023 meeting calendar for the HDP board, be placed on the consent agenda. Members of the public who wish to comment on this item should press *9 to raise their hand. No written comments were submitted regarding this item. Scott, has anyone raised their hand to provide comments on the proposed 2023 HDP board meeting schedule?
No, we do not have any hands raised. Thank you.
This concludes the public comment period for item 100. Board members, do you have any questions or comments on this item, or do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion to approve.
And we have a motion by Gary Gramling.
Second.
A second by Mitch Mitchell to approve item 100 on the consent agenda. As I say your name, please state your vote on the motion. Gary Gramling.
Aye.
Stephanie Benvenuto,
Aye.
Mitch Mitchell.
Aye.
I also vote in favor of the motion, which carries by a vote of 4-0. Next is item 101, the 2023 operating budget for Housing Development Partners. Members of the public who wish to comment on item 101 should press *9 to raise their hands. We will take public comments from callers after the staff presentation. No written public comments were submitted regarding this item. Executive Vice President and Chief Financial Officer Sukhet Dayal and Vice President of Real Estate Finance Julie Conserva will present this item. Please begin when you're ready.
Thank you, Jeff. Good morning, Commissioners and HDP Board members. Sukhet Dayal, Executive Vice President of Business Administration and Chief Financial Officer, here with Julie Conserva, our Vice President of Real Estate Finance, to present Housing Development Partners, or HDP's, operating budget. Next slide, please. HDP is San Diego Housing Commission's nonprofit affiliate, first incorporated in 1990, and it's chartered to provide affordable housing and services for people with low to moderate income, seniors, and individuals with disabilities. Our portfolio consists of 25 properties with 1,701 units, affordable units. 370 of these units are dedicated for people experiencing homelessness. A quick tie-in on the financials. HDP's financial activities are incorporated into San Diego Housing Commission's annual comprehensive financial report, and the San Diego Housing Commission's annual comprehensive financial report, which includes the HDP's financials, is then incorporated into the City of San Diego's annual comprehensive financial report. Our presentation will cover HDP's operating budget, and Emmanuel will present the property's operating budget. Julie will now walk us through the operating budget and sources and uses. Next slide, please.
Good morning. HDP's 2023 proposed budget totals approximately $3 million, which is a 9% increase from 2022. Revenues include developer fees, which are earned from achieving project-specific milestones such as construction completion and stabilization of rental operations. Additional revenues anticipated include receipts from available cash flow from the rental operations and general partner management fees. Revenue increases in 2023 are from the stabilizing of operating cash flows from the recently completed projects. Total uses proposed include operating expenses of $1.9 million and $1 million of surplus retained for future organizational goals. Proposed staff remains unchanged from 2022, and it includes approximately 7 full-time equivalents, or FTEs. Next slide, please. Reserves proposed for 2023 include a $900,000 corporate operating reserve, a $500,000 special purpose reserve, a $2.8 million property reserve, which is required for guaranteed reserves of operating shortfalls for the rental properties in which HDP acts in a general partner capacity. $2 million of board approved commitments related to the affordable housing projects are also included in the reserve commitments, and a $600,000 project reserve to fund short-term project loans from funding source timing gaps. Next slide, please. And that concludes our presentation. We're happy to answer any questions.
I have a question.
Let's go ahead and take public comment on callers first. Do we have any callers on this item, Scott?
We do not have any hands raised for public comment on this item. Thank you.
Excellent. All right, so board member questions. Board member Gramling, please.
Yeah, I noticed on slide 3 that under salary and benefits that we're budgeting for an increase for 2023 over projected 2022 of 26%. And that seems like a big jump. Did we miss doing anything in 2022 in terms of increasing salaries and benefits?
Not really, Commissioner. So the expense increase is predominantly due to incorporation of HDP into SDHC. So all HDP employees now that will be housed at Smart Corner will be subject to our HUD-approved indirect cost allocation plan. Now, the indirect cost allocation plan distributes the overhead expenses based on the relative number of full-time employees. So in this case, it's 6.91, or about 7 employees that we have for HDP. The advantages of that is you're going to have improved functionality, both from a support and usability perspective, and also from a security perspective. So the reason that they're now going to be covered completely under our overhead expenses is the reason for the increase.
And additionally, I'll add that that includes the negotiated cost of living adjustments with the MOU with the Housing Commission. So that is also in there. And I believe in 2023, we began budgeting a little bit more for pay in lieu, people not be able to take vacations as much during COVID. So there was a little increase in that. So you'll see a little bit of a jump because of that.
I also have a question on budget. So I heard them say you're holding steady on seven personnel, and so I think Commissioner Gramley's question is appropriate. And with the move to Smart Corner, I also see an increase in the office expense and other admin. So there aren't any there. You know, I would assume there'd be some efficiencies gained by moving everybody over, but yet the office expense and other admin budget is going up considerably. 23 over 22. Is there something into that?
Yeah, the functionality will improve tremendously as far as efficiencies are concerned. And let's just use rent as an example.
Yep.
So previously we were paying a vendor or 501B, the landlord, rent.
Yes.
When they come over to Smart Corner, they will still be paying their percent of Smart Corner rent. So whatever expense we charge every employee that is housed at Smart Corner, they'll be paying that rent. So you're still paying rent. You're just
maybe a little more. The rent may be a little more expensive by moving into Smart Corner, newer facility, at all. Basically, is that it?
Yeah.
One of the other expenses is IT as well.
Okay.
Yeah, where we're definitely gonna make sure that when it comes to security, when it comes to segmentation of HDP documents, we have to make sure that's 100% solid. And by moving over into Smart Corner, we gain that advantage as well.
Okay. So yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say it has to be in accordance with any other grant we charge. So it's programmatically the same we charge the homeless department. So it's a HUD approved methodology. So it's uniform throughout the agency.
Okay, that makes sense.
Well,
no further questions.
Staying in that same vein though, Mitch, and that was very good observation on your part. The office that they're moving out of had in recent years been totally modernized. And so I'm not sure that we're not moving from a dilapidated building to a new, that significantly new building. We're just moving back into, our headquarters. And so that's still almost a doubling of the office expense. It seems high.
It does. I'm not sure what the HUD methodology is, but it did stand out. Julie. Again, I get moving. I guess I was making the assumption that by moving from one facility to our headquarter building, we would be paying rent. But I think obviously there's something more to the methodology that I don't fully understand that is causing the significant increase in that expense line. So. Well,
IT is one of the. I'll quote very honestly. IT is one of the factors that is a lot larger.
Okay.
But there are a couple of reasons. Like I said, we talked about segmentation.
Yep.
We're going to have enhanced security. HDP will now be using the standardized SDHC protocols and protections, and also SDHC enterprise tools and applications. So they'll have access to a lot more tools and applications as they did when they were just HDP.
Yep.
So that functionality change is technology platform is unfortunately one of the expenses.
All right. Well, so it's more the IT expense than it is the HUD methodology.
It's the HUD methodology, which then distributes the IT expense in a proportion that is larger. Okay. Is that a fair statement?
That's fair statement. Okay.
Well, and I think it's also accurate to say that we are paying ourselves rent as opposed to paying it to a third party. So while it's still showing up in the budget, it's going to ourselves and not to a third party.
I would like to add that there's also some IT setup that are one-time expenses that you're seeing hit that line that you won't see in subsequent years as well. So that you'll see a change in that year over year.
Commissioner Benvenuto told me that she has Geek Squad skill level with IT. and that she could actually save you guys some money. So if you guys just
Or
started coming on a Saturday.
Very
after
appropriate
meetings-
timing. You
We'll
missed my
sign up.
preamble
We'll
bit.
sign up tomorrow.
we will distribute her cell phone number widely.
I'm sure HUD will approve that immediately.
Yeah. Thank you, Chair, whatever we call you in this meeting.
All right, any other board member questions?
Got a question. And this encompasses more parts of the budget than what we've been looking at, but what are we seeing in our properties in terms of trends that are developing through this whole COVID debacle, in terms of vacancy rates, job openings in terms of our staff and personnel, age trends of the people that we are retaining? Are those continuing to, age as the society is, or are the age trends coming down in terms of the employees who are going to workforce? And longevity of service. Any input on that?
I can give an overview and likely may miss a couple of your questions there, but I know that all of your questions will be satisfied in the next presentation. Overall, with respect to the properties, we are seeing some interesting trends on the expense side with respect to property insurance. That is an industry-wide impact as a result of the pandemic. A lot of loss claims came in over the last 2.5, 3-ish years, and we're feeling that pain throughout the properties. And we're doing other things to sort of hedge that on the expense side. We are seeing that the hiring market is extremely hot in our area. So we do have a difficult time in actually hiring. We see a longer period of time where positions are open. And we also see a lot of turnover, but we see that specifically in our permanent supportive housing, which tends to be a little bit more difficult to operate. We also see some normal expenses on the utility front, maybe a little bit more on the gas side, but again, that is felt nationwide, if you will. So we are seeing some trends there. We also are seeing some trends on the revenue side as well. Love to unpack the property presentation for you. I think it will hit all of those points.
Thank you, Emily. Any other board member questions? Or do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you. Moved by board member Mitchell. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Seconded by board member Grambling. As I say your name, please state your vote on the motion. Gary Grambling.
Aye.
Stephanie Benvenuto.
You're on mute.
Thank you.
Space bar thing doesn't work all the time. Technology is very good at it.
Uh-oh, IT concerns.
Yeah, right.
Mitch Mitchell.
Aye.
All right. Board members Grambling, Benvenuto, and Mitchell have voted in favor of the motion. I also vote in favor of the motion, so that carries by a vote of 4-0.
Thank you.
The remaining items on the agenda are the 2023 property budgets for the properties in HDP's real estate portfolio. We will have one presentation today regarding agenda items 102 through 113 on the HDP board agenda and item 100 on the HDP Mason board agenda. Members of the public who wish to speak on any of the property budgets identified on the agendas as items 102 through 113 and item 100 should press *9 to raise their hands. We will take public comments from the callers after the staff presentation. No written public comments were submitted for items 102 through 113 on the HDP agenda and item 100 on the HDP Mason agenda. Vice President of Asset Management, Emmanuel Ariano, will be presenting these items. Please begin when you're ready.
Good morning, board members, and thank you, Jeff. Next slide, please. The HDP real estate portfolio is projected to have healthier revenue in 2023. This will offset higher costs due to high inflation and the impact of uncollectible rent due in part to the COVID pandemic. Changes in rents for units with project-based housing vouchers or PVVs will not affect the amount that tenants pay towards their rent. The tenant's portion of rent will continue to be based on the household's income. The PVV will cover the amount of the contract rent that the tenant does not pay. PVVs provide rental assistance for 51% of the units in the HDP's real estate portfolio. Next slide. High inflation affects the operating cost of the HDP real estate portfolio as well. According to the United States Labor Department, the annual inflation rate for the 12 months ending October 2022 was 7.7%. In early 2022, the city of San Diego increased wastewater rates by 5% on top of a 3% pass-through charge from the San Diego County Water Authority to pay for increased imported water costs. Moreover, the average residential electric bill increased by 11.4% in 2022. Electric and gas utility expenses are anticipated to grow. Lastly, the industry also witnessed continued increases in contracted trade services such as landscapers, painters, and plumbers. This trend is expected to continue. In addition, with the job market that remains strong, with many vacancies, the real estate portfolio has needed to become more competitive in wages and benefits with certain positions and has observed longer duration to fill vacant job openings. Next slide. The average total operating expenses budget for properties in the HDP portfolio is $8,627 per unit per year. And for the Mason Hotel, it is $8,477 per unit per year. This aligns with what the industry is currently experiencing based on comparable per unit per year expenses provided by other management firms and the Housing Commission's Rental Housing Finance Unit. Repairs and maintenance of the portfolio are vital to preserving the assets. Next slide. Of note, about a third of the HDP portfolio provides permanent affordable rental housing with supportive services for tenants who previously experienced homelessness. This is often referred to as permanent supportive housing or PSH. The Mason Hotel is one of those PSH properties. PSH units tend to have a unique operating challenges such as higher vector control, security, and unit repair and turnover expenses. Next slide. The 2023 operating budgets reflect a recent 16% increase in property insurance costs seen during the last policy renewal in August of this year. This increase is in line with the Housing Commission's rate increase for its portfolio and lower than what other property owners are seeing. The HDP portfolio benefited from economies of scale by having all properties under one umbrella policy. However, increases are occurring industry-wide. We have included conservative increases in the 2023 budget for the policy's renewal next year. Next slide. For 2023, we have also included a budget allowance for each property for anticipated uncollected rent of some households. Despite multiple and continued attempts by staff, some tenants have not engaged with their property manager, nor have they participated in numerous COVID-related assistance programs available. Higher legal expenses are also projected because of anticipated unlawful detainer actions, as further steps are taken to address those households that resist to engage with their property manager and continue to carry an outstanding rent balance. For the Mason Hotel, additional maintenance items such as plumbing and boiler repairs are also foreseen in 2023. Next slide. Net operating income is anticipated to perform better than pro forma and underwriting parameters for each individual property. At 4 properties, projected expenses are anticipated to exceed pro forma targets. Those properties are Quality Inn, San Diego Square, Town and Country, and West Park. Ongoing focus and efforts to identify cost mitigating opportunities throughout the entire portfolio will continue. These include but are not limited to tighter expense controls at all levels of the expense approval process. We will continue to look for program opportunities to reduce expenses much like we did over the last couple of years when all of the HDP non-partnership properties underwent an energy study and retrofit. This resulted in an upgrade of all common area lighting with energy efficient LED lights at no cost to the property by taking advantage of programs offered by SDG&E Next slide. The Town and Country property has experienced financial challenges. As a result, staff will focus additional attention to address these issues. For example, 6 significant water backup related incidents have occurred in the past 12 months. The property bore the full expense of the loss for some of these incidents because of the $50,000 deductible necessary for insurance claims. A sewer line investigation was performed earlier this year. However, it did not reveal any immediate causes. Some of these challenges were caused by residents, and staff are pursuing all available remedies to address resident cost leaks. In 2023, additional due diligence work will be done for the potential renovation of plumbing systems. In addition, a large number of residents at Town and Country have not paid their rent, participated in assistance programs, or engaged with the property management to establish a payment plan. Efforts are underway to address those issues as well. Next slide. This slide shows the HDP portfolio summary for the 2023 property operating budgets combined. Net operating income for 2023 is anticipated to be $11.2 million, up from $9.9 million in 2022. Next slide. This slide shows the operating budget summary for the Mason Hotel with a net operating income of $149,000 in 2023. This is up from $97,000 in 2022. Next slide. During 2023, staff will continue to closely monitor the financial performance and intervene in a timely manner if any negative trends are identified. The asset management team will continue its focus on cost containment and take advantage of opportunities to realize economies of scale, better pricing, and savings. Early in the new year, we will also issue a request for proposals for property management companies to identify opportunities for additional consistency, better pricing, and possible reduction of the number of third-party property management companies that operate the HDP portfolio. Next slide. Staff is recommending that the HDP and HDP Mason Board take the actions detailed in the staff report for the properties shown on this slide, which are agenda items 102 through 113 on the HDP Board agenda and item 100 on the HDP Mason Board agenda. Next slide. This concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Emmanuel. Before we get to any questions, we'll take any public comments from callers on items 102 through 113 on the HDP agenda and items 100 on the HDP Mason agenda. When you are called upon, please state your name and which agenda items you want to speak about. Scott, do we have any callers at this time?
We do not have any hands raised for comments on these items. Thank you.
Thank you. So this concludes the public comment periods for items 102 through 113 on the HDP agenda and item 100 on the HDP Mason agenda. Board members, do you have any questions or comments on these items?
I have one or a couple.
Please.
Thank you. First off, there were 2 acronyms that appeared on those slides there that I'm just not familiar with. And maybe I went into hibernation or something, but the acronyms were PUPY and PUPA. And I don't know if those are two sides of the same piece of paper or if they're referring to 2 different things, but what do they stand for?
Sure, I can take that. So PU per Y, it's per unit per year. PUPA, it's per unit per annum. So you're right, we're using those interchangeably. They mean the same, year, annual.
So the A and the Y could have been switched.
Correct.
Okay. Okay,
Yeah.
that makes sense. Okay, you have the average expense per unit at $8,400 for Mason and $8,600 for everything else. But do we have an average income per unit? Gross or net, whichever?
Yeah. So the average for the portfolio, the average total revenue per unit, it's just shy of about $20,000 per year.
Okay.
Mhm.
And then, on insurance, that's a high, deductible, but I've been out of the business of leasing office space for a long time, so I don't know what insurance rates are doing that way. But, what is our insurance claim, experience? Are we getting increasing insurance claims on our property?
I can speak to that. Yeah, so not a significant increase. The main driver for the increase in the policy premium was the market that everybody in the industry has been impacted by. We did connect with colleagues in the industry and see what they were seeing. We were fortunate to see our increase be a little bit less than what other owners are seeing. To answer your question as far as claims, it's being not a very different year than what we see on average. One of our properties that's mentioned, Town and Country, did have a larger number of water-related incidents, and some of those did trigger an insurance claim when the expense rose above the deductible.
Now, one of our properties up there by USB, I forget the name of the property. It's a large project there. It's fairly close to what are, in essence, canyon land. And that based on just the general terrain, though. Hard to think of sometimes about canyon land inside the city limits, but they're all over the San Diego. Our insurance companies in places like that talking to us about AB 38, which has to do with the fire hardening years in California, and having to provide more clearance or anything of that nature.
I can speak to that one, Emmanuel, and perhaps you can supplement me. So I believe the location you're referring to is on the Housing Commission portfolio side via Las Cumbres. All of the properties that abut either a freeway or a canyon land, we have an annual procedure for brush mitigation that's built into budgets. And so we sort of stay out of the fray of any loss run issue with insurance company with respect to brush mitigation. We're pretty tight on that policy and procedure, so we're good there.
Yeah, and you're right, it is on the Housing Commission portfolio, not the HDP ones. But thank you for that info.
Certainly, yeah.
And then on slide 10, you're projecting a fairly large income growth in this next year. I know we're not going to get a lot of rent increases or anything, so why set the projected income growth?
Sure. So it as noted in the presentation, Gary, and you likely know this better than any of the commissioners. Sorry to all the other commissioners, but you've been here for quite a long time. We have over 50% of the portfolio are project-based vouchers, and through our annual request to increase those against rent reasonableness, we did see a bump there. And we're also doing some modest increases, obviously, to hedge the expenses that we referenced in the presentation. 5 at 1, and again, we can speak to what they are specifically to each property, but modest again to hedge against the expense we're seeing in the portfolio. But most of the units are project-based assisted.
Okay. All right. Those are all of my points. Thank you.
Hey, Jeff, I have questions. I have general questions that are the two basic areas, and I'll summarize it by. In both the infrastructure package as well as the CARES Act, there was money in both pieces of legislation that were signed at the federal level for upgrades to spaces. And I think there were categories that actually we fit into. Do we have a team of people that are looking at all the opportunities for federal dollars or federal funding that would apply to the properties that we own and manage?
Jeff, if it's okay with you, I can start that response. So we do have a rather robust effort under our grants team on the Housing Commission side. With respect to the HDP side, we do explore all funding opportunities. The one that you're mentioning is infrastructure monies. It does fit. There's coordination with the city on who is appropriate and what project, and that sort of landscape is citywide and does impact some of the projects we provide lending to. So there's a high level of coordination with the mayor's office. They have someone dedicated on this topic so that we ensure we're sort of focusing the right project to be the most competitive for those funds.
I appreciate that, Emily. I think I would love to get a report out on how this is looking for us. I've noticed a couple of situations where entities are just unaware. I mean, I'll give you a good example. There was money in the infrastructure bill for childcare facilities. Childcare has become a huge talking point. And a lot of entities missed this in the bill, so they didn't apply. And money was for rehab expansions of childcare locations so that you could accommodate more kids. And so in looking through the infrastructure bill, I had this conversation with Congresswoman Jacobs at one point. There was a bunch of money in there for technology improvements, right? So there were things that based on the way I read it that would have applied to us, Emily. So I would love a much more thorough understanding of what would be available for us throughout the commission as well as HDP, and then there are opportunities for my colleagues, in particular Ms. Benvenuto, to talk to people at City Hall about prioritizing this space. I think the reason why I say this is as we look to hopefully expand the capacity on the properties that we own and increase the number of units. I'd like to take care of some of the enhancements with some of the federal dollars that are available where possible. So
yeah,
and let me just add to that. So we do have a semi-annual grants report, which we do present, but on a quarterly basis, the team meets because Commissioner, just like you said, there are many things that the grants team may not be aware of, which the departments are more in tune with. And then once we receive that direction, then we go ahead and chase it.
Sure.
Part of the presentation is a lot of grants that we've applied for and not gotten, or a lot of grants that we've chased for and for some reason do not qualify. So that is something that we do track, and we can definitely share that report as well.
Okay. Yeah, I think there's an opportunity for us to work closer with the city's intergovernmental relations department, especially on the federal matters, so we can actually start to I would love to be able to present our needs list to our federal delegation, not through the city's eyes, but through our eyes. I'd love to talk to the delegation to say, this is what our needs list is, and here's what's available. Because I think if they know, they'll work hard to guide and hopefully get us some wins in some of those funds. So that's one. The second question I'd ask Jeff is, rates are going up. Utility rates are going up. Natural gas in particular, and have we asked SDG&E to do a comprehensive overhaul or an energy efficiency overview of all of the properties that we're talking about today?
Yeah, I can speak to that. We do avail ourselves of all of those programs, low flow water attachments in the shower, and obviously assessments to the water heaters and how we're set up there. But we'll also say that we noticed utilities are going up, and they do historically go up. That we are looking at green features to sort of hedge that going forward. There are opportunities for solar rebates, et cetera. And that is a big thing that we're coordinating with our development team as well as our operating team. So we do avail ourselves, but certainly we recognize there's more we can do and will continue to do.
Yeah, Emily, I would probably, you and I could talk offline, but it would make some sense to try. This is the right time to get in and try and get a comprehensive energy efficiency overview to see what new things may be available or suggestions, because that's in the best interest of the residents of the properties that we own.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of opportunity in the Inflation Act, and yeah, I agree. We can talk.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Any other board member questions?
Yeah, I had a couple quick questions. With regard to folks not paying rent, what's the general percentage you build into anticipating who's going to go through unlawful detainer practices, or is there like a baseline?
We actually look at it unit by unit in terms of what we believe as part of engaging with them is the likelihood of collectability. And so we conservatively budgeted, hey, we're not hearing anything. So it's very doubtful that we won't be doing anything but proceeding with unlawful detainer. We do, and we have done historically a lot of outreach to make sure that they can avail themselves of all available resources, and they just simply have not.
That makes sense. But let's take COVID out of it. When you're approaching the budget question, is there always like a 10% kind of, words escape me?
It's very customized to the location, right? So like, there's not like this 10% rule of thumb necessarily. It's really having a command of understanding what is going on with the residents at that particular property, and then sort of saying, is this really, do we really feel confident in the collection of this or not? And then we build the number out accordingly.
Is there, I'm aware that, HUD is always ever present. Are there HUD requirements around how you budget for that or plan for that?
Julie, Sikat, do you have that?
Excuse me. Yeah, I can speak to that. Yeah, we are required to follow, at least for the audit, a very conservative method of where we are taking a look and estimating based on exactly what Emily said, collectability based on the specific property, the specific tenants, and if there's not a highly likely probability collection, we assume the receivable is probably not collectible. So yeah, that is definitely a HUD requirement and something we follow throughout our portfolio, whether it's HUD or not.
Yeah, so that comes through in the audit.
Yeah, so we are on the side of conservativeness. We did see a little movement in 2022 where we were a little more conservative, but we did see some tenants then go get retro HSAP or other rental subsidies that we were able to adjust, but we tend to err on the conservative side to be in compliance.
A final question, can you, I don't know if this is possible, can you ballpark what your average unlawful detainer cost is?
Yeah, on the legal side, the cost runs from about $1,900 to $2,500 a door, very specific to what it takes to sort of see that process through. They're likely, we'll expect some inflation on that because that's unfortunately what is happening in the industry as we move out of moratoriums, et cetera. And we budgeted accordingly for legal expense throughout the properties.
Yeah, thank you. I perhaps am just paying better attention this time, but I saw that and was curious about kind of what that factors into in the budget. So thank you.
Just as a follow-up to that, Emily, I'm assuming that were most of these people brought to zero at the with the last distribution of rental assistance dollars. They were all eligible for utility and rental assistance monies out of the bucket, I'm assuming.
Yeah, so if there's quite a mixed bag, Commissioner, in terms of the situation of the portfolio. We have, some that have sort of just, not engaged, and therefore they took no advantage of a lot of the programs that were available through the Housing Commission, et cetera. So they have the full freight balance due on essentially sitting there for 2.5, 3 years. And we've been carrying that account receivable balance. Then you have some that availed themselves of that programming and then proceeded to, after getting to zero, not paying because they're seeing sort of this trend of folks waiting to see what happens. Then you have trends of folks that—
When you say waiting to see what happens, waiting to see—
what actions are going to happen with respect to remedying those balances. So
they're hoping there's more money that's going to be made available so they don't actually have to cover out of their own pocket.
Or that it will be forgiven, or any number of things. We also see folks where they see us engaging and they come in with a full balance. So it's really a mixed bag, and we'll attend to it in the most humane way, but also we do need to operate these assets.
I agree. Emily, do we have and I think this goes back to what Commissioner Benvenuto was asking. You must have in your mind there's a danger zone that you get to where you have way too many people who are in that category, a percentage.
Yeah, certainly. Like we've been watching it closely and almost in a desperate fashion doing excessive outreach to say, hey, come talk to us. Let's figure this out. And we do recognize that folks, when they're in these situations, sort of, attack them differently. Some just really hustle and try to sort of remedy their balances. Some get, the deer in the headlights scenario. And so we have employed a lot of different tactics to sort of speak to that. And make people feel comfortable to engage. So we really are doing our best to kind of get folks back in line. So
okay, it's a very difficult conversation. I'm going to commend you guys. I think that the budget reflects a 2% increase in rents, whereas the average is going to be somewhere around 10 for all over the city. So I think that, but again, that 2% increase will just force some of these people to fall deeper and deeper into the hole. I think we should talk about strategies of how we get them really focused on this issue of what's available to help them, because this too shall end their ability to just ignore it.
Yeah, no, definitely. And we recognize the delicate balance of the challenge that is facing us on multiple fronts on this topic.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Any other board member questions or comments? All right, seeing none.
Oh, sorry, I was going to say thank you for letting us go through this. I'll move to approve it.
Excellent.
Word, I can't. I motion to support.
Thank you.
No, never mind. You know what I mean.
Yeah, we got you.
So we're gonna first.
I'll second whatever it is that Commissioner Benvenuto was attempting to say.
Okay, gotcha. So first, we're going to consider items 102 through 113 on the HDP agenda. We have a motion by Stephanie Benvenuto and a second by Mitch Mitchell to approve items 102 through 113 on the HDP board agenda. As I say your name, please state your vote on the motion. Gary Gramling.
Aye.
Stephanie Benvenuto.
Aye.
Mitch Mitchell.
Aye.
I also vote in favor of the motion. So that carries by a vote of, well, let me go back and say that Gary Gramling, Stephanie Benvenuto, and Mitch Mitchell have voted in favor of the motion. I too vote in favor of the motion, so that carries by a vote of 4-0. We'll now adjourn. Did somebody say something?
I just said it's contagious. Sorry, I'm screwing it up.
We will now adjourn as the HDP board to reconvene as the HDP Mason board. May we use the same motion and second for item 100 on the HDP Mason board agenda?
Yes.
Should Commissioner Benvenuto repeat the motion?
No, I couldn't remember what I even tried to do there. So, but
I will second. I will once again offer my second to whatever Commissioner Benvenuto was motioning.
All right. So we have a motion by Stephanie Benvenuto, a second by Mitch Mitchell to approve item 100 on the HDP Mason board agenda. As I say your name, please state your vote on the motion. Gary Gramling.
I think this train is running on schedule. I vote aye.
Stephanie Benvenuto.
Aye.
Mitch Mitchell.
Aye.
Gary Gramling, Stephanie Benvenuto, Mitch Mitchell have voted in favor of the motion. I also vote in favor of the motion, and that carries by a vote of 4-0. That concludes our action items for today. Do any board members have any questions about the informational items listed on today's agenda for either HDP or HDP Mason? Seeing none, this concludes today's meeting of the HDP and HDP Mason board. The meeting is adjourned at 10:04, and thank you all very much. Have a great day.
Thank y'all. Happy
Have
holidays.
great holidays, everybody.
Thank you all.
Happy holidays.